What happens when a harmless bet turns into a disaster that destroys a marriage? How could one night of flirting for laughs lead to legal documents turning up at my office, right in front of everyone I know? Can my husband really take everything from me because of one stupid mistake? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The neon lights of the velvet loop cast an electric glow across my face as I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. My hands trembled slightly as I reapplied my lipstick, the deep red color making me feel bold and dangerous. At 32, I still had it. I could still turn heads, still make men want me. Daniel might not notice anymore, but other men certainly would. "Come on, Philo," Jenna's voice echoed from outside the bathroom door. "We're waiting." I smoothed down my black dress and walked back to our table, where my 3 closest friends sat nursing their cocktails. The bar was packed for a Friday night, filled with young professionals unwinding after a long week. The music pulsed through the speakers, creating an atmosphere of liberation and possibility. "All right, ladies," Jenna announced, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Time for the challenge we discussed. Philo, you've been complaining for months about feeling invisible, about Daniel taking you for granted. Here's your chance to prove you've still got it." My stomach fluttered with nervous excitement. "Remind me of the rules again." "Simple," Jenna grinned. "Pick any guy in this bar, a complete stranger, and get him to dance with you. But not just any dance. We're talking full-on flirtation. Make him want you. Make him think he has a chance. If you can keep him interested for at least 3 songs, you win the bet." "And what exactly do I win?" I asked, though I was already scanning the room for potential targets. "Bragging rights," laughed Sarah, another friend, "and the satisfaction of knowing you can still drive men crazy." My phone buzzed on the table. A text from Daniel. "Hey hon, working late tonight. Hope you're having fun with the girls. Love you." I stared at the message, feeling a familiar surge of irritation. Working late again. Always working, always responsible, always boring. When was the last time he'd looked at me the way men used to? When was the last time he'd made me feel desired, wanted, irresistible? "Earth to Philo," Jenna waved her hand in front of my face. "Don't tell me you're chickening out." "Not a chance," I said, sliding my phone into my purse without responding to Daniel's text. "I'm just choosing my target." That's when I saw him. Tall, dark-haired, probably in his late 20s. He was standing near the bar, wearing a fitted black shirt that showed off his athletic build. When he smiled at the bartender, I caught a glimpse of perfect white teeth. He was exactly the kind of man who would have pursued me relentlessly 10 years ago. "Him," I pointed discreetly. "The guy in the black shirt." Jenna followed my gaze and whistled appreciatively. "Good choice. He's gorgeous. Think you can handle him?" "Please," I scoffed, standing up and adjusting my dress. "Watch and learn." I made my way through the crowded bar, my confidence building with each step. The alcohol had loosened my inhibitions just enough to make me feel fearless. I positioned myself near the bar, close enough to catch his attention, but not so close as to seem desperate. It didn't take long. He noticed me within minutes, his eyes traveling appreciatively over my figure. When he smiled at me, I felt a thrill I hadn't experienced in years. "Can I buy you a drink?" he asked, moving closer. "I'm Evan," he said, extending his hand. "Philomene," I replied, letting my fingers linger in his grip just a moment longer than necessary. "But my friends call me Philo." "Beautiful name for a beautiful woman," he said, and I felt myself blush like a teenager. The conversation flowed easily. Evan was charming, funny, and most importantly, completely captivated by me. When he asked me to dance, I accepted without hesitation. On the dance floor, I let myself go completely. The music was sensual and hypnotic, and I moved my body in ways I hadn't in years. Evan's hands found my waist, pulling me closer. I could feel the heat radiating from his body, could smell his cologne mixed with the faint scent of whiskey on his breath. "You're incredible," he whispered in my ear, his breath warm against my skin. I threw my head back and laughed, feeling more alive than I had in months. This was what I'd been missing. This electricity, this passion, this feeling of being truly desired. From the corner of my eye, I could see my friends watching from our table, their faces a mixture of amusement and admiration. I was winning the bet spectacularly. The first song ended, but Evan didn't let go. "One more?" he asked, his voice husky with desire. "Absolutely," I breathed. The second song was even more intimate. Evan's hands roamed my back, and I found myself pressing closer to him, reveling in the attention. Other couples on the dance floor seemed to fade away until it felt like we were the only two people in the room. "Are you here alone?" Evan asked as we swayed together. For a moment I hesitated. The responsible part of my brain, the part that sounded suspiciously like Daniel, told me to mention my husband, to set boundaries, to remember my marriage vows. But the reckless part of me, the part that had been dormant for too long, whispered something different. "For tonight, yes," I said. "I'm completely free." Evan's smile widened, and he spun me around, making me laugh with delight. When he pulled me back against him, his hand settled lower on my back, and I didn't pull away. The third song began, and I knew I'd won the bet. But I didn't want to stop. For the first time in years, I felt like myself again, not just Daniel's wife or Tessa's mother, but Philomene, a woman who could make men lose their minds with desire. "You know," Evan said, his lips close to my ear, "this doesn't have to end when the music stops." Before I could respond, I caught a glimpse of movement near the bar's entrance. A figure in a dark coat stood silhouetted against the doorway, watching the dance floor intently. Something about the posture seemed familiar, but when I blinked and looked again, the figure was gone. A chill ran down my spine, but I shook it off. I was being paranoid. Daniel was at work, buried in spreadsheets and quarterly reports like always. He had no idea where I was or what I was doing, and maybe that was exactly the problem. I stumbled through the front door at nearly 2 a.m, my heels clicking loudly on the hardwood floor. The house was dark except for the small lamp Daniel always left on in the living room. I kicked off my shoes and tiptoed toward the stairs, hoping to avoid any awkward conversations until morning. "How was your night?" I jumped, my heart racing. Daniel was sitting in his armchair, still fully dressed, a cup of cold coffee on the side table next to him. "Jesus, Daniel, you scared me to death," I said, pressing my hand to my chest. "What are you doing sitting in the dark like some kind of creeper?" "Waiting for my wife to come home," he said quietly. His voice was calm, but there was something underneath it that I couldn't quite identify. "I texted you earlier." "I know, I saw it. I was having fun with the girls. You know how it is when we get together. We lose track of time." I moved toward the stairs, eager to escape to the safety of our bedroom. "It's almost 2 a.m, Philo." I turned back to face him, irritation flaring in my chest. "So, I'm a grown woman, Daniel. I don't have a curfew." "I never said you did. I was just worried when you didn't respond to my text." "Well, as you can see, I'm perfectly fine. Can we please do this in the morning? I'm exhausted." Daniel stood up slowly, and I noticed he looked tired, really tired. "Where exactly did you girls go tonight?" "Just some bar downtown, nothing fancy. We danced a little, had some drinks, caught up on gossip. Normal girl stuff." The lies came easily, rolling off my tongue like I'd been practicing them. "Which bar?" "God, Daniel, what is this? 20 questions," I snapped. "Why does it matter which bar?" "It doesn't," he said, but his eyes never left my face. "I'm just trying to make conversation with my wife." "Well, your wife is drunk and tired and wants to go to bed. Can the interrogation wait until tomorrow?" Something flickered across Daniel's face, hurt maybe, or disappointment, but it was gone so quickly I might have imagined it. "Of course," he said. "Sleep well, Philo." I climbed the stairs without another word, already planning how I'd tell the story to my friends tomorrow. Daniel's jealousy was almost cute in a pathetic way. If only he knew what he was really jealous of. The next morning, I woke up alone. Daniel's side of the bed was already made, which meant he'd been up for hours. I could hear him moving around downstairs, probably making breakfast for Tessa before her soccer game. I pulled on my robe and padded downstairs to find them both in the kitchen. Tessa was eating cereal while Daniel packed her sports bag. "Morning, sunshine," I said, ruffling our daughter's hair. "Ready for your big game?" Tessa looked up at me with those serious brown eyes she'd inherited from her father. "Are you coming to watch, Mommy?" "Of course, baby. Wouldn't miss it." Daniel glanced at me over Tessa's head. "You sure? You seemed pretty tired last night." "I'm fine," I said, pouring myself a cup of coffee. "A little hangover never killed anyone." "What's a hangover?" Tessa asked innocently. "It's when Mommy drinks too much wine and feels yucky the next day," I explained, shooting Daniel a warning look when he opened his mouth to object. "Why do you drink wine if it makes you feel yucky?" "Because sometimes grown-ups need to have fun, sweetheart, even if Daddy doesn't understand what fun means." Daniel's jaw tightened, but he didn't say anything in front of Tessa. Instead, he finished packing her bag and checked his watch. "We need to leave in 10 minutes, he said. "The game starts at 9. "I'll be ready," I promised. But as I headed upstairs to shower, I heard Tessa's small voice asking, "Daddy, why don't you know what fun means?" And Daniel's quiet response, "I do know, sweetheart. Daddy and Mommy just have different ideas about what fun looks like." At the soccer game, I sat in the bleachers with the other parents, trying to focus on Tessa's team despite my pounding headache. Daniel sat a few feet away, cheering enthusiastically every time our daughter touched the ball. "Rough night?" asked Linda Morrison, another soccer mum who always seemed to know everyone's business. "Girls' night out," I said with a knowing smile. "You know how it is." "Oh, I remember those days. Before kids, before husbands started acting like prison wardens." She laughed, but there was an edge to it. "Where did you go?" "Some place called the Velvet Loop, downtown. Great music, cute bartenders." "Sounds fun. Daniel didn't mind you going out without him." I glanced over at my husband, who was completely absorbed in the game. "Daniel doesn't get to mind. We're married, not joined at the hip." "Good for you," Linda said approvingly. "Too many women let their husbands control every aspect of their lives. A little independence is healthy." "Exactly. Just because I have a ring on my finger doesn't mean I'm dead." After the game, which Tessa's team won, thanks to her 2 goals, we went to lunch at our usual family restaurant. Tessa chatted excitedly about the game, while Daniel and I sat in relative silence. "Daddy, did you see my second goal?" Tessa asked for the 3rd time. "I saw both of them, superstar. You were amazing out there." "Mommy, did you see them too?" "Of course, baby. You were the best player on the field." Tessa beamed with pride, but then her expression grew more serious. "Mommy, why were you on your phone during the first half?" I felt heat creep up my neck. I had been texting with Jenna about the previous night, reliving every moment of my victory. "I was just checking messages, sweetie. Work stuff." "On Saturday?" Daniel asked quietly. "Some of us don't get to turn off our phones just because it's the weekend," I snapped. Daniel looked like he wanted to say something, but Tessa was watching us both with those perceptive eyes, so he just nodded and went back to his sandwich. That evening, after Tessa was in bed, Daniel and I found ourselves alone in the living room for the first time all day. He was reading a book while I scrolled through social media on my phone. "Philo," he said suddenly, "can we talk?" "About what?" "About last night. About us." I sighed dramatically. "What about us, Daniel? We're fine." "Are we? Because lately it feels like we're just roommates who happen to share a daughter." "That's not true." "When was the last time we had a real conversation? When was the last time we did something together, just the 2 of us?" I thought about it and realized I couldn't remember. "We're busy, Daniel. We have jobs. We have Tessa. We have responsibilities. We can't all be teenagers forever. I'm not asking to be a teenager. I'm asking to feel like I'm married to someone who actually wants to be married to me. Don't be so dramatic. Just because I went out with my friends doesn't mean our marriage is falling apart. It's not just last night, Philo. It's everything. The way you talk to me, the way you dismiss everything I say, the way you act like spending time with your family is some kind of burden. I don't act like that. You told our daughter that I don't know what fun means. It was a joke, Daniel. Lighten up. It didn't feel like a joke. I set down my phone and looked at him directly. Okay, fine. You want to know the truth? You have gotten boring, Daniel. When was the last time you surprised me? When was the last time you made me feel excited about anything? You go to work, you come home, you watch TV, you go to bed, rinse and repeat. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. So, this is my fault? I'm not saying it's anyone's fault. I'm saying that marriages require effort from both people, and lately it feels like I'm the only one trying to keep things interesting. By going to bars and flirting with strangers, my blood ran cold. What did you just say? Nothing. Forget I said anything. No, Daniel, what did you mean by that? I didn't mean anything. I'm just tired, and I'm saying things wrong. But something in his eyes told me he knew more than he was letting on. Something in his tone suggested that my night of freedom might not have been as secret as I thought. I'm going to bed, I announced, standing abruptly. Philo, wait. No, Daniel, I'm done with this conversation. You want to accuse me of something, then have the balls to actually accuse me. Don't just sit there making cryptic comments and expecting me to defend myself against crimes I haven't committed. I stormed upstairs, leaving him alone in the living room. But as I brushed my teeth, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. Daniel's questions weren't random. His suspicions weren't unfounded. And that figure in the dark coat at the bar. What if it hadn't been my imagination after all? 2 weeks later, we were gathered at Daniel's mother's house for their monthly family dinner. Paula Vane had been hosting these gatherings for as long as I'd known Daniel, and they were always a mix of good food and family drama. Tonight felt different, though. There was a tension in the air that I couldn't quite place. So, Philo, Paula said as she passed around her famous lasagna, Daniel tells me you've been having quite the social life lately. I shot a look at my husband, who was focused intently on cutting Tessa's food. Just the usual girls' nights out, nothing too exciting. Oh, I don't know about that, I continued, feeling bold. Maybe it was the wine, or maybe it was the way Daniel had been walking on eggshells around me for the past 2 weeks. But I decided to have some fun with the story. Actually, I won a bet a couple weeks ago that I'm pretty proud of. What kind of bet? Asked Marcus, Daniel's younger brother, who had driven down from the city for dinner. Well, I said, settling back in my chair with a smile. My friends dared me to prove I could still turn heads, so I went to this bar downtown and picked out the most gorgeous guy in the place. Had him eating out of my hand within minutes. The table went quiet. Daniel's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Paula's expression turned to stone. You did what? Paula asked, her voice dangerously low. Oh, relax, Paula. It was harmless fun. I danced with him for a few songs, let him buy me a drink, made him think he had a chance. It was like being 25 again. While you're married to my son. While I'm a grown woman who doesn't need permission to dance, I shot back. Daniel wasn't exactly complaining when I came home that night, were you, honey? Daniel finally looked up from his plate. His face was pale, and there was something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Not anger exactly, but something colder, more final. Actually, I was, he said quietly. Oh, please. You barely said 2 words to me. Because I was trying to process what I'd witnessed. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. I felt my stomach drop to my feet. What you witnessed? I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. I was there, Philo. At the Velvet Loop. I saw everything. The room erupted in chaos. Paula gasped audibly. Marcus dropped his fork with a clatter. Tessa looked around the table with wide, confused eyes. You were what? I managed to choke out. I finished my project early that night and decided to surprise you. I thought maybe I could join you and your friends for a drink. Imagine my surprise when I walked into that bar and saw my wife grinding against some stranger on the dance floor. It wasn't grinding, it was just dancing. You let him put his hands all over you. You whispered in his ear. You told him you were single. How could you possibly know what I told him? Because I stayed and watched, Philo. I watched my wife flirt with another man for over an hour. I watched her act like she'd never been happier in her life. Daniel, Marcus said quietly, maybe we should— No, Daniel interrupted, his voice still eerily calm. I think it's time everyone knew exactly what kind of woman I'm married to. How dare you, I exploded, jumping to my feet. How dare you spy on me and then ambush me like this in front of your family? I didn't spy on you. I came to surprise my wife and instead got to watch her humiliate me in public. I didn't humiliate anyone. I danced with someone. It's not like I slept with him. Oh, well, that's a relief, Paula said sarcastically. As long as you didn't actually commit adultery, I suppose we should all be grateful. Stay out of this, Paula. This is between me and Daniel. Like hell it is, Paula snapped. You made it everyone's business the moment you decided to act like a single woman while wearing my son's ring. I am not going to be lectured by a woman who's never worked a day in her life about what marriage means. Philomene, Daniel's voice cut through the room like a whip. That's enough. But I was past caring about anyone's feelings. The wine and the adrenaline had made me reckless. No, Daniel, it's not enough. I'm sick of being treated like a criminal for having one night of fun. I'm sick of your mother acting like she owns you. And I'm sick of you acting like some kind of victim when you're the one who's been neglecting your wife for months. Neglecting you? Daniel stood up slowly, and for the first time since I'd known him, he looked genuinely intimidating. I work 60 hours a week to support this family. I come home every night. I help with homework. I go to soccer games. I try to have conversations with you that you dismiss or ignore. What exactly have I been neglecting? When was the last time you looked at me the way that man looked at me? When was the last time you made me feel beautiful, or desired, or like I was anything more than just the woman who does your laundry? I tell you, you're beautiful all the time. While you're reading your phone or watching TV, when was the last time you really looked at me, Daniel? When was the last time you touched me like you actually wanted to? The silence that followed was deafening. Tessa had started crying quietly, and Marcus was trying to comfort her. Paula looked like she wanted to throw me out of the house bodily. So this is my fault, Daniel said finally. My wife flirts with other men because I don't compliment her enough. I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm saying that maybe if you paid half as much attention to your wife as you do to your spreadsheets, she wouldn't need to look elsewhere for validation. Look elsewhere for validation? Marcus repeated incredulously. Jesus Christ, Philo, do you hear yourself? Don't you start with me, Marcus. You're 31 years old, and you've never had a relationship last longer than 6 months. Maybe you're not the best person to give marriage advice. At least I don't cheat on people. I didn't cheat. You would have, Daniel said quietly. If I hadn't been there watching, if that guy had asked you to leave with him, you would have done it. The accusation hit me like a slap, because deep down I knew he might be right. In that moment on the dance floor, with Evan's hands on my body and his whispered promises in my ear, I had felt more alive than I had in years. And yes, when he'd suggested the night didn't have to end with the music, I had been tempted. That's not true, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? Daniel asked. Because from where I was standing, it looked like you were having the time of your life pretending to be someone else, someone who wasn't married to me. Maybe I was, I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. Maybe for one night, I wanted to remember what it felt like to be desired instead of taken for granted. The hurt that flashed across Daniel's face was so raw, so genuine, that for a moment I wanted to take it back. But the damage was done. The words were out there, hanging in the air between us like a chasm that could never be crossed. Well, he said finally, I guess that answers that. He walked over to Tessa and gently lifted her from her chair. Come on, sweetheart. Let's get you home. What about dessert? Tessa sniffled. Grandma will save you some cake for next time, Daniel said, kissing the top of her head. Are you and Mommy fighting? Grown-ups sometimes disagree about things, baby. It's not your fault, and it doesn't mean we love you any less. As Daniel carried our daughter toward the door, I realized that everyone in the room was staring at me, with expressions ranging from disgust to pity. Even Marcus, who usually tried to stay neutral in family conflicts, looked at me like I was a stranger. I hope it was worth it, Paula said as I gathered my purse and coat. I don't know what you mean. That dance, that moment of feeling desired, I hope it was worth destroying your family. I didn't destroy anything. Daniel is being dramatic and you're enabling him. Paula laughed, but there was no humor in it. You know what, Philomene? You're right. Daniel is being dramatic. He's being dramatic because his wife publicly humiliated him and then tried to blame him for it. He's being dramatic because the woman he's loved for 8 years just told his entire family that she wishes she was married to someone else. That's not what I said. It's what you meant, and we all know it. I left Paula's house that night knowing that something fundamental had shifted in my marriage, in my family, in my life. But I wasn't ready to admit that it was my fault. I wasn't ready to face the possibility that my moment of fun, my harmless bet, my innocent dance, might have consequences I hadn't anticipated. As I drove home alone, my phone buzzed with a text from Jenna. How did the family dinner go? Did you tell them about your conquest? I stared at the message for a long moment before deleting it without responding. Suddenly, my conquest didn't seem quite so victorious anymore. Monday morning arrived with all the subtlety of a freight train. I dragged myself to my office at Henderson & Associates, where I worked as an HR coordinator, hoping that a return to routine might help me forget about the disaster at Paula's house. But the moment I walked through the door, I could feel eyes on me. Morning, Philo, called Janet from reception, but her usual warm smile seemed forced. Morning, I mumbled, hurrying toward my office. I'd barely settled at my desk when my phone buzzed with a text from Jenna. Girls' night tonight? Sarah found this amazing new place in the Arts District. Live band, great drinks, lots of cute guys. The invitation that would have thrilled me a week ago now made my stomach churn. Another night out. Another opportunity for Daniel to accuse me of inappropriate behavior. Another chance for my marriage to implode a little bit more. I was typing a polite decline when my office phone rang. Philomene Vane speaking. Philo, it's Mom. Cleo's voice was bright and cheerful, as always. I just got off the phone with Paula, and honey, I have to say, I'm disappointed in Daniel. What do you mean? Making such a big fuss over a little harmless flirting. Men these days are so insecure. When I was your age, your father would have laughed it off. He would have been proud that other men found his wife attractive. Daniel doesn't see it that way. Daniel needs to grow up. You're a beautiful, vibrant woman, Philo. You shouldn't have to dim your light just because your husband is too boring to appreciate what he has. The words were exactly what I wanted to hear, but somehow they didn't make me feel better. It's complicated, Mom. No, it's not. You danced with someone. You had fun. You reminded yourself that you're still desirable. That's healthy. If Daniel can't handle being married to a confident woman, maybe he's not the right man for you. After hanging up with my mother, I tried to focus on work, but concentration was impossible. Every time someone walked past my office, I wondered if they were talking about me. Did they know what had happened? Had Daniel told people at his accounting firm? Was I becoming the subject of office gossip? Around noon, my fears were confirmed when Linda Morrison from Tessa's soccer team appeared at my door. Philo, I was hoping I'd catch you. I work in the building across the street and thought I'd stop by for lunch. Linda had never visited me at work before, which meant she was here for gossip, not friendship. How are you doing, honey? She asked, settling into the chair across from my desk with the air of someone preparing for a long conversation. Fine, just busy with work. I heard about what happened at the family dinner. Word travels fast in our circle, you know. My blood ran cold. What exactly did you hear? That Daniel made a scene about your night out. Honestly, Philo, I'm not surprised. I could tell at the soccer game that he was the controlling type. Daniel isn't controlling. Please, the way he questioned you about where you went, what you did. Classic signs of an insecure husband. My ex was the same way before I divorced him. Daniel and I aren't getting divorced. Of course not, Linda said quickly, but her tone suggested she thought otherwise. I'm just saying, if you ever need someone to talk to, someone who understands what it's like to be married to a man who doesn't appreciate you, I'm here. After Linda left, I sat in my office feeling more isolated than ever. My mother thought Daniel was being unreasonable. Linda thought he was controlling. Jenna thought he was boring. But none of them had seen the look in his eyes at dinner, the quiet devastation when I'd essentially admitted that I wished I was married to someone else. My phone rang again. This time it was Marcus. Philo, we need to talk. If you're calling to lecture me, I'm calling because I'm worried about my brother, and despite everything that's happened, I'm worried about you too. What do you mean? Daniel didn't come to work today. He called in sick, but when I stopped by the house this morning, he was gone. Tessa was at school, and the neighbors said they saw him leave around 6 a.m. with a suitcase. My heart stopped. A suitcase? He's not answering his phone. I thought maybe you'd heard from him. No, we haven't really been talking since Sunday. Philo, what exactly happened at that bar? Because the Daniel I saw at dinner wasn't just angry. He was broken. I closed my eyes, remembering the way Evan's hands had felt on my waist, the way I'd pressed against him during that second dance, the way I'd told him I was free for the night. I danced with someone, I said quietly. That's it. That's it. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. You know, I've known Daniel my entire life. He's not jealous, he's not possessive, and he's not dramatic. If he reacted the way he did on Sunday, if he's missing work and packing suitcases, then what happened at that bar was more than just dancing. I didn't sleep with anyone, Marcus. Maybe not, but you wanted to, didn't you? The question hung in the air like an accusation, because the truth was, yes, I had wanted to. For those 3 songs, pressed against Evan's body, feeling desired and beautiful and alive, I had forgotten about my marriage, my daughter, my responsibilities. I had been just Philomene again, not Daniel's wife or Tessa's mother, but a woman who could drive men wild with desire. I have to go, I said, hanging up before Marcus could respond. I tried calling Daniel, but his phone went straight to voicemail. I tried texting, but got no response. By 3 o'clock, I was panicking enough to leave work early and drive home, hoping to find some clue about where he'd gone. The house felt different when I walked in, emptier somehow. Daniel's laptop was gone from his home office. His favorite coffee mug was missing from the kitchen. When I checked our bedroom, I found that his side of the closet had been systematically emptied of essentials. Work clothes, casual clothes, toiletries. But it was what I found on the kitchen counter that made my blood turn to ice water. A single sheet of paper with a note in Daniel's careful handwriting. Philo, I need some time to think. Tessa will stay with you during the week and with me on weekends until we figure this out. Please don't try to contact me. I'll call you when I'm ready to talk. D. Beneath the note was a printout of our joint bank account activity. Several large withdrawals had been made that morning, along with a transfer of funds to an account I didn't recognize. My hands were shaking as I called Marcus back. He left, I said when he answered. What do you mean he left? He's gone, Marcus. He took his clothes, his laptop, half our savings. He left me a note saying he needs time to think. Jesus Christ, Philo. What the hell happened at that bar? Before I could answer, I heard the front door open and Tessa's voice calling out, Mommy, I'm home. I have to go, I whispered into the phone. Tessa's here. Philo, wait. But I hung up and tried to compose myself before my 7-year-old daughter found me having a breakdown in the kitchen. Hi, baby, I said, forcing a smile as Tessa bounded into the room. How was school? Good. Where's Daddy? His car isn't in the driveway. Daddy had to go away for work for a little while. When will he be back? I don't know, sweetheart. Soon, I hope. That night, as I tucked Tessa into bed, she asked the question I'd been dreading. Mommy, are you and Daddy getting divorced like Emma's parents? Why would you ask that, baby? Because you've been fighting a lot, and Emma's mommy said that's what happens before people get divorced. I sat on the edge of her bed, struggling to find the right words. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that Mommy made some bad choices? How do you tell your daughter that you might have destroyed your family for the sake of 3 dances with a stranger? Daddy and I are having some problems right now, I said finally, but we both love you very much, and that will never change, no matter what happens between us. I want Daddy to come home. I know, sweetheart, I do too. But as I turned off Tessa's light and closed her door, I wondered if that was actually true. Did I want Daniel to come home? Or did I want him to come home and pretend that nothing had happened? Did I want my husband back? Or did I just want my comfortable life back? The answer scared me more than I was willing to admit. 3 days passed without a word from Daniel. 3 days of Tessa asking when Daddy was coming home. 3 days of fielding concerned calls from neighbors and friends. 3 days of lying awake at night, wondering if my marriage was over. On Thursday morning, a courier appeared at my office door. Philomene Vane. That's me. He handed me a large manila envelope with my name printed in bold letters across the front. The return address was from Hartley, Morrison and Associates, a law firm I'd never heard of. My hands trembled as I tore open the envelope. Inside were several official-looking documents, but the cover letter made my blood run cold. Dear Mrs. Vane, we represent your husband, Daniel Vane, in the matter of your marital separation. Please find enclosed a petition for legal separation, temporary custody arrangements for your minor child, and a proposed division of marital assets. You have 30 days to respond to this petition. We strongly advise you to seek legal representation immediately. The papers slipped from my fingers and scattered across my office floor. Legal separation, custody arrangements, division of assets. The words swam before my eyes as the full reality of the situation hit me. Daniel wasn't just taking time to think, he was leaving me. I fumbled for my phone and called his number, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried texting but got no response. Finally, in desperation, I called Marcus. He served me with papers, I said the moment he answered. What kind of papers? Legal separation, custody. He wants to take Tessa away from me. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Philo, I tried to warn you. I tried to tell you how serious this was. You have to help me. You have to talk to him. This is insane. We can work this out without lawyers getting involved. I don't think we can. What do you mean? I mean, Daniel showed me something yesterday, something that changes everything. My stomach dropped. What kind of something? Maybe you should ask him yourself. He's staying at the Marriott downtown, room 412. I left work immediately and drove across town to the hotel, my mind racing with possibilities. What could Daniel have shown Marcus that was so damaging? What evidence could he possibly have of wrongdoing when all I'd done was dance with someone? I found Daniel's room and knocked on the door, my heart pounding. It's open, came his voice from inside. I pushed the door open to find Daniel sitting at the small desk by the window, his laptop open in front of him. He looked tired, older somehow, like he'd aged years in the past week. Hello, Philo. Daniel, what the hell is this? I waved the legal papers at him. It's exactly what it looks like. I'm filing for separation. Over one night, over one stupid dance. Daniel turned to face me, and I was shocked by the coldness in his eyes. Sit down, Philo. There are some things we need to discuss. I don't want to sit down. I want you to explain to me why you're trying to destroy our family over nothing. Nothing? Daniel's voice was eerily calm. Is that what you call it? Yes. I danced with someone. I flirted a little. It was harmless. Daniel reached into a folder on the desk and pulled out a stack of photographs. He spread them across the bed like he was dealing cards. "Take a look at these and tell me again how harmless it was." I moved closer and felt the world tilt beneath my feet. The photos showed me and Evan on the dance floor, but they weren't just pictures of dancing. They showed his hands on my body, my arms around his neck, my face pressed close to his. They showed me laughing, touching his chest, whispering in his ear. They showed me looking happier and more alive than I had in any photo with Daniel in years. "Where did you get these?" "I took them while I was watching my wife seduce another man." "I wasn't seducing anyone." Daniel pulled out his phone and tapped the screen. Suddenly, my own voice filled the room. "For tonight, yes, I'm completely free." "You recorded me?" "I recorded everything, Philo. Every lie you told him, every time you touched him, every moment you pretended you weren't married to me." He played another clip, Evan asking if the night had to end with the music, and my breathless response, "I hope not." "That's not... I didn't mean..." "What didn't you mean? Because it sounds to me like you were planning to leave that bar with him." "I wasn't." "Really? Because I have 45 minutes of audio that suggests otherwise." Daniel stood up and walked to the window, his back to me. "Do you know what the worst part was, Philo? It wasn't watching you flirt with him. It wasn't even watching you lie to him about being single. The worst part was seeing how happy you looked, how alive, how much more yourself you seemed to be when you were pretending I didn't exist." "Daniel, I've been thinking about that night for weeks. About what I saw, what I heard, what it all means. And I keep coming back to the same conclusion. You don't want to be married to me." "That's not true." "Isn't it? When was the last time you looked at me the way you looked at him? When was the last time you touched me the way you touched him? When was the last time being with me made you feel the way being with him did?" I opened my mouth to argue, but no words came, because the truth was, I couldn't remember the last time any of those things had happened. "I thought so," Daniel said quietly. "People change, Daniel. Marriages go through rough patches. That doesn't mean we should just give up." "This isn't a rough patch, Philo. This is you telling me, as clearly as possible, that you'd rather be with someone else." "I never said that." Daniel turned back to face me, and I saw something in his expression that terrified me. Not anger, not hurt, but resolution. "You didn't have to say it. You showed me." He walked back to the desk and pulled out another folder. "There's something else you should know." "What now?" "I hired a private investigator." My blood turned to ice. "You did what?" "After that night at the bar, I needed to know if there had been other nights, other men, other lies." "There weren't." "I know." "The investigator confirmed that this was your first adventure, but he found something else interesting." Daniel pulled out a printout and handed it to me. It was a screenshot of text messages, my text messages with Jenna from the night of the bet. "How did you get these?" "We share a phone plan, Philo. All your texts are backed up to our joint account." Daniel laid my phone on the bed and made me read the messages out loud. The bet with my friends, the thrill of making a stranger beg for my number, the casual line, "What about Daniel? What he doesn't know won't hurt him." Then he handed me Tessa's letter, where our 7-year-old drew me smaller because Mommy is always on her phone or going out with her friends, and said he was asking for shared custody with primary residence with him, because he was the parent who actually showed up. I begged for counseling, for another chance, insisting I hadn't really cheated, that it was just harmless fun. Daniel asked one simple question: if he hadn't been there that night and the other man had asked me to leave with him, what would I have done? Staring at the photos, the messages, and my daughter's shaky handwriting, I finally faced the truth I'd been dodging all along. I would have said yes.